please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
So let's jump into the closer market for the second half here. Just a note first from our sponsor, AutoNew. AutoNew Fantasy Baseball is the next level fantasy baseball challenge you've been looking for. Experience a year-round dynasty competition with deep rosters. Accumulate prospects to lead your team in the future or to move for a superstar at the trade deadline. Keep your baseball mind engaged in the offseason with trades and arbitration. Learn more about why everybody who plays AutoNew becomes addicted at AutoNewBaseball.com. That's OTTONEW baseball.com. AutoNew, it's just better fantasy baseball. So, Jeff, I have the closers kind of broken down by ADP tiers, and I moved a couple guys up and down just because I can kind of see the trends, how they're going. So that's just how I did this. But the first tier we have these top five guys, ADP 50 to 100. Mm-hmm. Josh Hader and Liam Hendricks are kind of the top two. Then Chapman and Diaz, and then kind of Raisel Iglesias, your boy from ex-Cincinnati, has been moving up into those guys. Just from a strategy standpoint, as you're going to, say, a 15-team league, say, call it the main event, whatever you want to call it, are you planning on getting one of these top fives? Are you kind of seeing how the draft values closers? Do you have a strategy for a top-tier closer as we're kind of moving towards the big drafts here?
Yeah, I mean, I've played it a couple different ways. So, like, I did a 12-teamer. The 12 versus 15 really matters here. So, a week and a half ago, I did beat Jeff Erickson, 12-teamer, RotoWire Online Championship, and I took Liam Hendricks. Now, of course, some of that was because he was near his max pick.
Okay, I was going to say, was that your plan going in, or it was max pick?
No,
like,
it was... It was like, hey, this is a great value and let's try it. And the thing that I stumbled upon is I really like doing it. It really was nice because I didn't feel this urge to get a second and third that I could take speculative chances late. I allow me, I'm getting, I think there are very few guys I feel comfortable with in this pool. There may be 7 or 8 guys that I feel comfortable, and there's only like 4 or 5 that I feel very comfortable.
Yeah, I jumped it to like 12 total, and that's like including guys that I'm not really comfortable with. It's a very thin pool. After about 12, it gets really ugly.
And the added benefit, and this is not a strategic benefit so much as how it makes you feel benefit. I think I talked about this before.
It does. It really makes you just feel a lot more free to do what you want in the rest of the draft.
That, and you don't care when everybody else takes a closer. You're like,
it's beautiful, isn't it?
I mean, I've got my guy. Now, of course, eggs in one basket, he gets hurt, or forgets how to pitch. That happens with closers, allegedly sometimes. But then again, any player has that sort of risk, the performance side of risk there. But I don't feel that way about Hader. I just, usage wise, I know he's like, the ceiling is so much higher because of all the Ks, right? And because of, but at the same time, the Brewers, I mean, rumors were that they were dabbling him in trade talks. Now, granted, he's probably going to close for whoever he gets traded to, but they also kind of, in the past, the way he's been used, 2 innings here, and then he's off for 2 days, that sort of thing. Now, granted, those 2 innings might be worth more because he's getting you 5 Ks in that outing, and, okay.
Every time.
And that you get 5 Ks twice in a week, well, okay, that's fine. And you get 1 save and 1 win. Yeah, I'll take that. So, you got to do the math on that though. But, you're using roster spots on closers that you need to get the saves. I mean, it's a category we play in. In the 15, however, I might not, I think there's a lot more opportunity cost. I think this is also where draft position matters too. If you're in my preferred position in the 15s, especially, is the middle of the draft, 8, 9, 7, 6. You're not going to get as trapped by the runs as you are when you're on one of the ends. In TGFBI, I was in the 2 spot. I am in the 2 spot. We're still ongoing. I had a chance at Hendricks at 5.2, which would have been pick 62. Perfectly acceptable price, but I'm waiting 28 more picks, and I'm going to give up a lot. Like, I took Voit instead. I'm missing all these bats, and I wanted the bat. I didn't want to give up. And then, at 7.2, I had another chance to dip into that closer pool, and okay, here comes the run. If I don't take it now, it's now or never. Sure enough, the run came after that, but I did never. And I didn't take my first closer until round 14, and I'm okay with that build too.
And it's funny because if you're at, say, at the other end, say you're pick 14 or 15, you pretty much have zero chance to get Hendricks or Hader, because either you have to take him at 45, 46, which you probably don't want to do. It's a little early. But if you don't, I mean, there's no way they're coming back to you at whatever that is, 75, 76. So it's weird, like you say, part of the draft, like guys like that might just be fully off the table to you, depending on where your draft slot is. Right. With Hader, the ADP is about 60, so that's like the 4 or 5 turn. There's enough I see in this profile. I think he's going to be fine, but there's enough I see in this profile that keeps me off of him. The K rate was still absurd last year, but it dropped. It dropped down. It was 39% last year, which is still really good, but he was 46 and 48% the year before that. Walk rate jumped to 12.8%. He led 15 home runs in 2019. Barrel rate the last 3 years have gone 10.6%, 12.6%, 14.7%. These are all picking nits here. I mean, it's all little things. Hader's still really, really good. Strikes a ton of guys out. But as the very top closer and somebody I'm using a 4th round pick on, there's enough there that I'm a pass at the price.
I think I am too. Fastball dropped a mile from 95.6 to 94.6. Swinging strike percentage dropped from 23.7 to 16.7. Now,
23.7 is insane.
It's absurd. It's ludicrous. Yeah. 16.7, by the way, is outstanding.
Yeah,
but
really
more
good.
So for a starting pitcher than a reliever. And, that's one of some of the work that Alex Chamberlain's been doing is he's getting granular. Like, okay, on what's the swing and miss for a fastball versus a slider, and for a reliever versus a starter. And you kind of have to dig into that sometimes. And the home runs have been there. Last year, he gave up plenty of homers again. He gave up, he only gave up 3 last year. I lied. I'm good at lying like that, but that was not projects about to be about 10 on the season.
It does. Yeah. And again, I think he'll be fine, but there's enough little things here that I see that I'm not willing to make him the closer. And the big problem for me is if he has any sort of hiccup or problem, they have an absolute freaking stud that could take over. That's behind.
Also true.
And when last year, the thing was, you and I talked about Hendricks a lot last year. And the thing that I really liked about Hendricks was there was nobody behind him that was going to take the job, no matter how bad he was. He'd have to get hurt or have a 9 ERA for Joaquin Soria or Lou Trevino come take the job. Hader has a couple hiccups. Devin Williams come in there and get the job done pretty easily. And they're like, we can use Hader in the 7th, 8th inning and be really effective. There's just too many ways this can go a little sideways. I think he'll be fine. Like I said, I'm just not doing it at the price.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you unless other people jump Hendricks ahead of him. And I think I still take Hader over the rest of the pool.
It's funny. Hader was the 4th closer taken in my TGFBI, and it got to the point where I was about to take him because I was like, oh, now I'm at a point where I think the risk is worth it. I think he went in the mid-70s, maybe something like that. Yeah. I'd have to look at it to be precise. But he went after Chapman, Diaz, and Hendricks. And it got to the point where I was, and I think I'm a fade on Hader at the price, but there is definitely a price where I'm taking almost anybody. I'm not crossing anybody off because I'm fading them. It's just if the price gets a certain point, there is a point that I will take somebody.
Yeah, of course.
So the next 2 guys are Chapman and Edwin Diaz, and I'm going to throw Iglesias in that mix just to make it easy on the group. If you had to pick one of these 3 to kind of, you don't get the top 2 guys, you had to pick one of these 3 to really, you want to get a top tier guy, or you can call him a second tier guy, whatever you want to call him. Is there one of those 3 you really prefer over the others?
Chapman, I guess, but he just throws fewer innings every year. That seems a little bit of concern. Honestly, I don't take these 3.
Okay.
I wait and take Rosenthal or Hand or Jansen instead.
That's a fair point. I'm just looking. Yeah.
Diaz. The skills are. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just going back to Hader. I looked. He went 5-12 in my TGFBI.
Yeah, and you were sitting at 10.
I was 5'11". I went starter, but I would have taken him the next turnaround for sure. And I almost took him at 5'11". I came very close.
I think you should have, but sight unseen. Now, who's your starter that you took there?
I took Sonny Gray.
Okay, I'm on board with that too.
Yeah, I as I did it, I was very close on it. I was like, I probably should just take the price on Hader here, but I only had one starting pitcher at that point, and I didn't love who was going to come around the turn, and it just there's a lot of things that go into it, but I strongly considered him, which is weird because a week before that I'd said that he was on my fade list. So, but it kind of works that way. I like Chapman in this group too. I think that he's locked into the job, which is the most important thing. They have good guys behind him, but I think that he's the guy. They've been very clear that he's their closer and he's their guy. Velocity's down a little bit, but everything else is still. The strikeout rate is still insane. He had a 20% swinging strike rate last year, which was up from the year before, which is good. But he only threw 11 innings last year because he came off the COVID. But 42% whiff rate and his fastball is wild. Like you usually don't see that on a fastball. I think that the 5-6 turn on Chapman is a good price, and I'd take him over Diaz. Diaz could be the best closer in baseball. He could be, who knows? It's just he's hard to figure. Anybody that tells you they know exactly what's going to happen with Edwin Diaz is crazy because I think he'll be pretty good, and I feel pretty good that 2019 was a kind of a fluky year. But I don't know, when that profile's there only a year ago, it still creeps up on you.
Yeah, Diaz, it's all about the extremes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's extreme strikeouts, extreme hard to hit, but extreme walks, and and walks beget like home runs because then you try to groove one, not walk another guy. But, and we've seen him lose the job before too. That's the other thing that worries me about Edwin Diaz is that there is that institutional memory of Edwin Diaz losing the job with the Mets.
And they have options behind him. There's guys they could go to too.
Yeah, although Seth Lugo won't be ready for the start of the season, so that's one less possibility. But
they signed Trevor May.
They did. They did. They also
very good pitcher.
The Mets also the Mets also have Dylan Betances still hanging around there. They have a deep team, and that is one thing. I made the point on the hitting side of things, but it also applies to their bullpen. It's a deeper bullpen than they've had in the past.
I think that Raisel Iglesias is a bit better than I kind of remembered. He has an ERA under 3 in 4 last 5 years. Last year looked really good. That 2019 ERA kind of looks like a blip now when you look at his whole setup. But
right.
K rate was a career high last year at 34%. Swing strike was 18.6%, which it jumped from 15%. Mm-hmm. Never had a hard hit rate over 33%. Should have the job fully in Anaheim. I mean, they traded for him to have the job. He's a guy that's moving up, though. ADP is 92. I don't think he's going to get there in the main event.
Probably not. We often see some inflation there. But this year in particular with closers, I think we've seen other cases where the closers have been pushed down some. So it's some really conflicting data. But then again, main events are different than any other thing. One negative is he does have Joe Madden always trying to reinvent the game.
That is true.
Now, Madden has said in the past he wants to use a full-time closer with him, but we'll see when push comes to shove when he has 2 bad outings in a row. Mike Myers is throwing bullets. I mean, last year was a disaster for this Angels pen, so I know they're thirsting for a stable closer.
Yeah, I think he's just a pretty solid guy, and I think he works fine at the price. I think he's got one of those guys that's just fairly priced. I think that if you want to take him there, I think that's fine. I have no issue with it. He's someone that I probably would take in the. I don't think I'd do it early 6th, where I think he'll end up going. If it was in the 7th, I'd probably do it, but he'd probably have to. He'd probably have to be at ADP or a little bit later for me to do it. But let's jump into this. Let's jump into this next tier, because this is the tier that I think is fascinating. You're gonna have to try and find your guys in this tier. ADP 100 to 150. We've got James Karinchak. Hopefully I say that right. Brad Hand, Ryan Presley, Kenley Jansen, Kirby Yates, and then I moved Rosenthal and Craig Kimbrell up to this round because I think in the main event or any kind of competitive leagues, they're gonna be moving up these last couple of weeks.
They're already there.
Yeah, they are. Rosenthal is, and Kimbrell's on the move. But you're right. Rosenthal definitely is already there. I've seen some like 6th and 7th rounds on Rosenthal. And so what do you do in this range? It's a weird mix. We got some injured guys coming back. We got Rosenthal and Yates. We've got the old veterans in Kimbrell and Jansen. We've got Karinchak and Ryan Presley, kind of the younger guys coming up. Or I guess Presley's not that much, but Karinchak, younger guy. Then you got Brad Hand, who somehow at a 2 ERA as his velocity continues to drop. Who in this range? You say you don't get someone in the top tier. Is there someone you're really aggressively going at in this range? I think this is the range that you like to figure out who you want and kind of attack in the spot.
So, yeah, I think Rosenthal is someone I'm going after. I love how, as much as the A's have this reputation of devaluing closer by trading him away and using random people there, lately, at least under Melvin, he finds a guy and he sticks with him.
And even when they trade him the year after, it's coming off good years. Like even like Billy Koch and Keith Folk had good years there. They're a team that great ballpark to pitch in, great defense playing behind them. They've got 2 Gold Glovers in the infield, and Elvis Anderson, a really good defensive shortstop. And you think he still is. He's getting up there in age, but a really good team to pitch for. I think that Rosenthal is going to be the helium guy. I think we might see him kind of up near Iglesias by the time we draft late in March.
I have him ahead of Iglesias now.
All right.
I am the helium guy with him.
Nice. So where are you willing to take the stand and take him?
I think I'd take him ahead of Iglesias. I put him in that upper tier. So 7th round, okay. I take him.
All right.
I take him ahead of anybody in this tier. And I take him ahead of Iglesias and maybe Diaz.
Okay. So you got a good chance to get him. You're in a very aggressive spot with him where there's a lot of people that like him, but you're right up there with him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing is, if I'm taking a closer there, I'm taking him over Karinchak. I'm taking him over Kenley. I'm taking him over Yates for sure. I like Hand. I've warmed up to Hand. I thought that I'd be fading him because of the velocity, but I've dug in a little bit more, and he's just the end results have been so good. Either Statcast wise and just obviously saves, but that I'm I'm better on him than I thought. And plus, his velocity did pick up towards the end in September last year, too, as opposed to the rest of the season. I'm pretty good on Presley, too, to be honest. The fact that the Astros didn't go out and get anybody else, they have some interesting young arms. But
you see his quote this week? His quote was weird.
What was the quote?
And I think he was just trying to be team guy, but they said, are you fired up of being the closer? And he's like, I'm just here to pitch. I don't care who closes. I just want to do my job and kind of get guys out. It felt to me like I want to be the team guy, do the right thing. But I don't know. Do you want your closer to be like, yeah, I want the ball in the ninth? Next question.
It might just be he just doesn't want to make waves.
I think that's what it was, too.
I think it's just a throwaway. I need more context to think of it. But besides, it's not like there's a job battle there.
There isn't, yeah.
He is the closer. I think we should not overthink it. I go Rosenthal, Hand, and Presley. I used to have Kenley above a couple of those guys. I'm kind of pushing him down just a little bit. Threw today a little. I think it was like 89 to 90 today for Kenley. But you don't want to read too much into early March velocity numbers. But
so he was like working on mechanics too, which never is a great thing to see either. But
yeah,
I want to talk about Kenley, but I want to talk about Karinchak first. This is obviously a guy that's very hyped. People love him. Yeah. He's about 100. ADP is about 100. It's 101 somewhere in there.
Yeah.
The K rate was flat out elite last year, 48.6%, just a bonkers K rate. But the walk rate was 14.7%. So there's a lot of command stuff there. He's had issues with walks in the minors. It's not like it was a weird thing where that was a big jump, and he hasn't done that before in the short season. He should be the guy with Hand gone, but like you hear quotes from Francona, and they talk about how we're going to use guys in high leverage. I don't really think he's like a locked in ninth inning guy. And at pick 100, I need a guy that I'm pretty sure is going to come in out of the bullpen in the ninth inning.
I agree with that. And the X factor is ownership is uber cheap, and you think that they maybe want to tap down on his, tap down on that arbitration value of his coming up soon in like a year or two. Well, give him fewer saves. I could see Cleveland forcing Terry's hand with that, even if he wanted to make him the full-time closer. So I could see that being a possibility. So Whitgren might get a few here. Clase might get a few here and there. Let's see Clase pitch first before because he's obviously missed all of last year. So
Whitgren's been pretty good for 3 years in a row. I mean, that's an arm that I think he's a pretty solid enough pitcher that I don't get the price on Karinchak. I mean, I get that he's electric. The stuff's electric. I just think the job issues plus the walks, I just can't do it at the price. He's not. I don't think he's going to end up on any of my teams as long as the ADP stays where it is.
Yeah, I mean, you could make us look silly, especially with those Ks.
For sure, electric stuff. He's fun to watch. He's electric. I just don't feel that he's like a come in the ninth inning and get all the saves guy right now.
Yeah. I'll say this though. I mean, as long as I think it's more damaging to spend an early pick on a closer and have him blow up or in a bad way than it is to miss on a guy that's a really good closer. I mean, I remember Edwin Diaz, when he had that massive year for the Mariners, set the saves record, all that. I dug into like the numbers and
I remember that, yeah.
Of the top 20 teams in the main, I think only one guy had him. And it was like, okay. I thought that would be like one of those, okay, he's going to be on a lot of those teams.
Right.
But there were more people who did the pickup Bud Norris that did well in the top 20 because he had like 25, 30 saves that year for the Cardinals. Right. That was more important than nailing Edwin Diaz because of the draft capital. And that's why on the 15s, I'm more inclined. I might miss this. I might just skip this entire tier 2. We'll see. Unless one of them that I like falls to closer to pick 150 also. Ninth or 10th round. Then I'll start thinking about it.
Where do you fall on Kenley right now? It's weird. Like you watch him and he's just not the same. And I think in our head, like we expect that elite guy. And the last 3 years have been good, like a regular good and not the elite guy that he was. But like you look at his StatCast page, for instance, he's over the 90th percentile in exit velocity, hard hit rate, xWOBA, xERA, x batting average, and x slug and barrel rate. Like 7 categories in 90th percentile. Yeah. I was kind of shocked by that when I looked at it. He throws his cutter 62% of the time, 27% whiff rate on that. The fastball gets a good whiff rate too when he throws the sinking fastball. A lot of fly balls last year, which kind of freaks me out because he's had some home run issues, but maybe the dead ball helps out a little bit. Not a lot of hard. He's always a good hard contact guy. He's been under 30% every year. He's 14% last year. Granted, small sample, but still pretty impressive. He's a guy that I can make a case for either way. And he kind of I don't know. The ERA is now he's like a 3 to 4 ERA guy rather than a 1 to 2 ERA guy. But like if he didn't lose the job last year, like I don't think he's going to lose the job. It seems like Robert's really loyal and committed to him.
He was good in the regular season. We always remember the playoffs.
Yep. And his ERA was 3.33. Like he wasn't elite Kenley, but still really good.
His swinging strike rate was 16.4%.
Yep.
Josh Hader was 16.7.
Yep.
We're talking, for a guy that, Kenley didn't lose any velocity last year or the year before. He lost it from 2017. It's down a mile from that, but that was he's learned how to pitch like that.
I think we have to just recalibrate who we think he is because he's a different guy now and he's just good instead of great.
Yeah, I ended up with him a couple times early on, and the only thing I didn't like is I didn't back him up with Trinan, but these were DCs, so it's back upable. But
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the closer that's still left in the 9th or 10th round in the main of that group. Well, I'll take him, sure.
Yeah, I think I got to the point where I think I'm fine taking him, whereas I kind of jumped into it thinking like, I don't really want Kenley anymore. But I think you're right. I think 9th round, if I don't have a closer, I think that he's someone I'm fine with. I do like Rosenthal too. How do you feel about Kirby Yates these days?
I just don't know. I really don't know. And
yeah, it's weird. It's weirdly there's not very much news on him in spring training either. Like as before we did this, I kind of searched for some stuff, and
yeah,
there's not really out there. He hasn't pitched. He's kind of like thrown some bullpens, but there's not a lot of updates on how he looks or anything. I think I agree with you. I think I need to see some stuff before I decide where I put him, because obviously I ended up with him in TGFBI in the 10th round. And he was kind of my closer too, and there's kind of the ADP.
There's a lot of good players in the 10th round.
There are. It could backfire big time, or in 2019 he was the best reliever in baseball. So there's a whole world of outcomes on Yates.
Yeah, see that this is where I'm kind of like, someone else could get the windfall over me. If he falls, great, but I'm not there. I'm just not there.
And I think a little bit of that difference between a league where you're not paying and you're playing for kind of an overall prize, and you're just taking a shot, where if I'm putting a bunch of money in the main event, I don't know if I'm entrusting it to Kirby Yates like I would in a league where I'm kind of just shooting for upside.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Let's jump down a tier. We've hit a bunch of these guys. I do like Presley also. I just wanted to note that he's a guy that I'm definitely willing to take in that spot. You like Handler more than I do, by the way. 150 to 200. There is nobody in this range that is like locked into their job and good skills.
Right.
Like you can find something wrong with all these guys. Both Twins guys are in here, Alex Colomé and Taylor Rogers. I moved Taylor Rogers out of here. He seems like he's slipping in a lot of drafts. Colomé was great last year with ERA and saves and all that. I'm still not buying. I just don't like the profile.
It's nervous. It's enough to make you nervous. The fact that they have multiple options, good options in that bullpen is scary, including Rogers, who is following, and I think justifiably. I don't think Rogers actually had all the good skills there last year either. But and the fact that Baldelli is the manager and he's from the Rays tree, and that is enough. That's pretty scary.
And he's already said they're going to both finish games. And I just I don't need to turn on the TV in the 9th inning and see the wrong guy come in. That's just so maddening. Yeah. But then on the flip side, we have someone like Nick Anderson, who we're pretty sure is not going to be the guy that's coming in the 9th inning, but the skills are just beyond elite. He was a .55 ERA. I know he had a little issue in the playoffs, but he had a 44.8% K rate last year and a 5.2% walk rate. Like, talk about a guy that K's everybody, doesn't walk anybody. That's just an insane combo. Only had 6 saves, though, and he only had 1 in the playoff run. They had 7 as a team. He only had 1 of them. So it's very clear that the way the Rays run it, he's not going to get – I mean, I think that, like, I don't know what your projection is, but I would say like a 12 to 15 saves is probably a pretty good mark to throw in for him. He'd be a top 5 closer with a full-time job for sure, but he's so good, but it's so hard to take him because if you're going to take him in this spot, it's like the 11th round. You're certainly going to want some saves out of your guy.
Yeah, he's like the – number one argument for doing saves plus holds instead of saves. Yep. But the other thing I don't like about him is he just doesn't throw that many innings. As much as elite as everything, all the ratios are. Last year was great. He was amazing. He had 26 strikeouts. Okay, because he threw 16 innings. Right. And they were early on, especially. They were really treating him with kid gloves. He would do like 2/3 of an outing and 2/3 of an inning outings here and there. Like, let him finish the inning, and that's just them. And I think the full season they could have like 15 guys get saves this year. It'd be fun. Let's set a record.
They're almost doing it on purpose now, just because they know they should. And then you get a 44.8% K rate with Anderson, and Devin Williams laughs at that because he had a 53% strikeout rate last year.
Was awesome. That's so fun.
.33 ERA. He had where is it here? He had a 0.32 batting average and slugging against his changeup last year. A 0.32 slugging is just absurd. And now he has 61% whiff rate with his changeup. He hit 2 singles on his changeup all year long in 27 innings.
Ridiculous.
He's insanely good. But again, we had pick 180. You're using a 12th round pick on someone that probably doesn't get very many saves.
Yeah. In contrast to Anderson, he threw 27 innings last year.
He did. Yeah.
So that's like, you could see a world where he gets 80 innings. And if he
throws 80 innings, you probably don't need more than 10 saves for him to work at the price.
Or and you might get more wins too.
Yeah,
the other thing too about that. But yeah, it is really nerve-wracking to take a reliever that doesn't get saves in the 12th round.
You're taking some of the 12th round that you're not counting on for wins or saves is tough to stomach.
Yeah, it is. I haven't done it yet this year.
I haven't either. So then we get down to someone that, has the job, but it's kind of an okay pitcher. You get Raphael Montero. Seattle traded for him, presumably to close. He missed 2018. He only threw 29 innings in 2019. Then he came back last year. He was 8 for 8, I believe, for saves for Texas. He threw 17 innings. K rate was solid. Walk rate was solid. He was kind of, solid there. A lot of hard contact, though. It kind of scares me a little bit. 43.5% hard hit rate. Barrel rates the last 2 years were 13.9%, 15.2%, giving up a ton of rockets. 54% fly ball guy last year, which is really scary at those hard numbers, although it was pretty elevated from 2019. We still have a lot of innings to go on with Montero. He's got 46 innings the last 3 years. ADP is 192. If you're looking for a second closer, is Montero someone that you're jumping on at all?
I mean, the price is okay, because I don't really see too many challengers to him. I don't think this, and this is another team that recycled a ton of different relievers last year, and it had to be exhausting. Managers don't want to have to make these decisions like this.
No. Yeah.
So I think they'd love for him to just be the guy. But yeah, I mean, I got him. I have him in a keeper league, and that's the only place I have him so far. I haven't gotten him in any of my redrafts this year.
I did not know Scott Service was still their manager. I thought they'd moved someone else, but I guess apparently he still is. It's funny. I wrote down decent price, which is kind of what you said. I think he's got a lot of blow up potential, though. It kind of scares me. I'm probably not going to end up with him as I want someone else as my second closer, and I don't know. I think there's a little too much scary here and not enough innings to fall back on the last 3 years. There's a little too much unknown for me.
Yeah, I think there's not enough distance between him and the next tier to spend that draft cost on him.
But it's funny, as you can see, after we get past that second tier, I mean, there's scars on all these guys. There's nobody here like, oh, this is easy. I'll take this guy right here. However, I do like Richard Rodriguez, but the Pirates are going to be terrible.
The Pirates,
he's probably going to he's going to get traded at some point. But I mean, the guy was really good last year. 36.6% strikeout rate after he's 22% in 2019. He was a 35 strikeout to 5 walk guy in 2020. The dude was so good last year. Swinging strike was 15%. A lot of hard contact, but when you strike out that many guys, it doesn't worry me as much. He did change his pitch mix a little bit. He threw twice as many sliders last year, and he had a 63% whiff rate in the slider. Like, his slider was nasty last year. I don't know. His ADP right now is 226. I don't think there's a chance in hell that he gets that in the main event. I think he's probably a 180 to 190 guy.
Right.
So probably 12, 13, kind of with Montero, with Williams and Colomé and Nick Anderson. I'm taking him over those guys, I think, but I'm very scared of the Pirates.
Yeah, I'm not scared
from trading him more than him.
Yeah, and trading him to a team that doesn't need a closer, of course. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think but you can Shane Green him. I mean, crappy team, but he's the guy, and he's 31 years old. He's not someone that they're going to try to we got to make sure we manage him so we can get him cheaper in arbitration. They want him to. They actually probably want him to get saved so they can kind of trade him easier. Not that most major league GMs will actually use the saves as an evaluative tactic, but if he's good in high pressure situations, it's easier to highlight how good he is. So I actually think they'll actually kind of max him out. And there's nobody else. I mean, until they find somebody else. That's
the thing. Like, Kyle Crick walked everybody last year. Chris Stratton, Michael Feliz maybe, but there's not a lot here that you're worried about someone. There's not someone like they're grooming to take over the role, would be worth.
That's right.
Yeah. There's no Devin Williams behind Richard Rodriguez is kind of what it comes down to. But I think if his price doesn't move a lot, I think it's going to move by the main event. But it doesn't move very much. He's a guy that I'll probably have on my closer 2 on a bunch of teams.
Yeah, I can see it.
So as we go down to the 200s, we get guys that, you got to take speculations on. We got Taylor Rogers. We talked about him a little bit already. We got Will Smith in Atlanta. We have Drew Pomerantz, Matt Barnes, Jordan Hicks, Greg Holland. Who do you like down here? If you get stuck, you got one closer. You got to find your second guy here in the 14th, 15th, 16th round. Who are you jumping to? Mine is probably Archie Bradley in this range, but who are you looking at?
We've never been hurt by Archie Bradley. You can never go broke investing him in there. But
he was pretty good for us last year.
No, it's just he's been freed of Torey Lovallo, but
yeah, he's certainly that won't be the first year that Archie Bradley's someone I'm thinking about taking, but
I've landed on him in this range.
Yeah,
I've landed on him. Jordan Hicks, I've gotten a couple of times. Hicks is a target for me.
You think how certain do you think that he's the guy?
Well,
because Gallegos is
on
really
opening
good.
day,
yeah,
50%. But by May 1st, I'd ratchet that up to about 80%, maybe 85.
I kind of wish Gallegos wasn't as damn good as he is.
Yeah, I know.
But they didn't use him in last year either. Really,
that's the thing.
They don't seem like they want him to. Like if they wanted to be the guy, he just would have been the guy last year, right?
Right. I mean, they did everything they could to not let him be the guy. Now, granted, he had COVID last year too. He was one of the COVID guys.
The Cardinals, the Cardinals were a mess overall. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to kind of figure it out. But in TGFBI, I waited entirely on closers. 14.14 was my first closer, and that was Hicks.
Wow. Okay.
I followed that with Drew Pomerantz at 15.2 and backed him up with Melanson at 17.2. So, and watch Emilio Pagan go crazy, but.
So what you want there is you want either Pomerantz or Melanson to just take over the job so you can use one of them because you don't want to use both of them or have to guess, but you got both of them. I think
in a 15-teamer you can.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you probably don't want to do it every week, but yeah, a lot of weeks you can. And Pomerantz is tough because I mean they don't. It's another guy that they don't really seem like they want him to be the closer. Like they could have done it last year and they brought in Melanson this year, but. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's been awesome since he's been a reliever. His ERA is like 1.5 last year. Ever since they moved to the pen in late 2019, he's a complete different guy. I mean, his velocity's up to 95. He was like low 90s as a starter, so he's a complete different guy when he gasses out in the bullpen. He's really, really good, and I love him as a pitcher right now. I didn't like him as a starter very much, but you want to go pitcher-wise, he's really good. 15th round, I really have no idea if he's going to get the saves or not. And they got Pagan, they got Melanson. They could play a lot of lefty righty kind of stuff in there. I just worry that he might get 8 saves.
Yeah, that's possible. But if I have them both, well, that's fine and good ratios. But yeah, I think you can get the combo of Will Smith and Chris Martin pretty affordably. And
I love Chris Martin's like my late in the draft guy that I love.
Oh, I love him too. I think he's great, and I think you don't. And the thing is, you don't have to have Smith to go get Martin. You can get. No,
I'm planning on getting Martin without Smith.
Yeah, but I think Smith will be better this year. He was another guy, had COVID, joined late, took a while to get a feel for a pitch. Yeah,
he was super lucky last year too. 121 BAP and 100% strand rate.
Is that good?
Yeah, that works out well. And he still had a 4.5 ERA. Like it still didn't really work that well, but 45% hard rate, 15% barrel rate. But like you look at his old numbers and like it's so much better than that. I think you're right. I think he's one of those guys with a COVID late start things. You got to take a lot of that with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
he's been a good pitcher for a lot of years,
and he's got the contract too.
Yeah,
so that comes. I'm not touching Matt Barnes.
I was gonna ask you about Baltimore next. I mean, it's weird. Him and Ottavino are almost like the same guy. Like a lot of strikeouts, but just a ton of walks. That's just gonna be one of those things. I think they might go back and forth based on who's hot, who's not walking guys.
It'll be Ryan Brazier. Watch, it'll finally be the year that this comes through.
Had him everywhere 2 years ago too.
Oh yeah,
they had that first save. We thought we were geniuses, and that lasted about a week. There's enough on Barnes I saw last year that I didn't like. His swing strike rate actually fell 3% last year. His Ks his Ks are always really good. They fell from 38 to 30%. There's enough there that with all those walks, I would take Ottavino later, way before I take Barnes at his price.
Same. I'm in the same boat there. I would take Crichton later than taking Soria early. It might be Tyler Clippard for all we know. It might be all three. Torey Lovallo is becoming Gabe Kapler.
I don't think you want Joaquin Soria.
I don't either. I don't either.
K's down, walks up, swinging strike rate down. His fastball fell 10% whiff rate last year. I think we might have seen a little bit of the start of that cliff with Joaquin Soria last year.
I think you're probably right about that. On a similar note, I like Pete Fairbanks late. You know, I think they want him to close. You know,
they sure he had 3 saves in the playoffs.
He's a little too walky, but you know, at the same time, you're not paying the price for him.
What do you do if you have one closer, you need a second one, and you see Greg Holland sitting in front of you? Do you think about jumping there at all?
I really don't want to.
Your face and noise is about how I feel right there.
He's a stream. I streamed him late in like Yahoo Friends and Family last year, and it worked out.
He was actually pretty good last year. Like his swing strike was 13%, which I was shocked it was that high. K rate was 27%. He was able to drop the walks, which is key. Like the 2018 and 2019 big ERA jumps were because of a lot of walks, but I feel like you're on a razor thin line with Holland. I mean, he goes back to walking guys. He's gonna get lit really fast. And they have some good R's behind him.
That's
like
the big thing.
Stamont, and then there's a couple guys there that they could end up with the job. That it does worry me a little bit. Where I like guys that don't have any kind of studs behind them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they have lots of live arms in their bullpen. Stalmont, Barlow.
Scott Barlow's good too.
Take a look at Jesse Hahn's numbers last year, by the way.
I don't want to. He was on the A's and he was terrible. I know he was really good last year as a reliever.
Do you know how good he was?
I do. I just I forget. ERA was under 1, right?
17.1 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run.
4 hits? What the hell was his BABIP then?
Like
125.
It's got to be.
I found it. 108. My God.
108. However, only 8.2% swing and miss. Yeah,
and a 12% walk rate.
Yeah. So the regression monster's coming, but to what? I mean, the thing is, when you're, maybe just he's good at not allowing hard contact. That could be the thing. And they even signed Wade Davis.
Did they really
get the band back together here?
I can't believe Jesse Hahn's throwing 95. What the heck is that? That's ridiculous.
But he's not a starter. So
yeah, no, it's true. He gassed it out. I still like. We mentioned I like Archie Bradley in this range. I think he'll be solid. I think that
I do too.
Hector Neris is bad enough last year that I think that Bradley will at least start out with a job. Real quick, what do you do with your Reds? Do you think it's Amir Garrett? You think Lucas Sims? How do you feel on the Reds?
65% Garrett, 25% Sims, 10% the field. Field is probably not. That includes Lorenzen if he doesn't win the starting job, or Antone if he doesn't win the starting job. Please be Antone that wins.
Does anybody in the Reds not throw 112? My God, Hunter Green was throwing 100. Hunter Green was throwing 103 the other day.
Yeah, Hunter Green. He just needs to learn how to pitch. But man, he was the second overall pick. I mean, he's supposed to be able to do that sort of thing. But
Antone's throwing 99, 100 too.
He was throwing 97 and 99 with a sharp break on a slider against the Dodgers. Give me TJ Antone all the time. Clay and I both are.
You're the Reds fan. What do you think his role ends up being?
Starter eventually.
Think he started? Okay.
Yeah, he may not begin the year as a starter.
Okay, but eventually it's not 2022. You think this year?
You're right. I think the Wade Miley thing has to run its course. And there's a note the other day that said that Lorenzen is the leading candidate for the 5th starter's job. But Antone, I want to see his next couple starts or next couple of outings and see how well how they stretch him out, because they need to get him as many innings as possible. He's very good at pitching, and I want that. But I like Garrett. I just the way they've used him in the past is kind of scary. Sims is obviously behind. He hasn't pitched in a game yet because he had the elbow stuff in January and February. So that's something to watch for. But I think there's going to be enough saves there. It's going to be worth paying attention to.
Do you have any feel for the Texas guys, whether it's Jose Leclerc, who threw 2 innings last year and walked everybody in 2019, or someone like Jonathan Hernandez, who was pretty darn good last year?
Give me Hernandez for the price every time.
Me too.
Every
time.
I'm
not taking Jose Clark at the ADP or as my second closer. I'm just not doing it.
I'm just not taking him. He's not on my list.
Any Daniel Bard love with that cool comeback story?
I mean, it's a Rockies closer, so I mean, you don't really want to have to take him, but he's gonna have. You know what? If you're lacking a third closer, sure, I guess.
Pretty damn fun. He came back last year after 7 years, throwing 97 though.
Right. Still walking guys. That kind of concerns, but not like Steve Blass walking guys or anything, or old Daniel Bard for that matter. But I don't know. I probably won't have him too frequently. You have any feel for the Marlins situation?
I mean, they say it's Anthony Bass, right? I guess that If I get stuck down here, maybe I want to jump a third closer. I mean, Bass is serviceable, I guess that was what I call it. I mean, if they want to go with him, the K rate's low, the walk rate is a little elevated, not too bad. But you're talking about a guy ERA under 3.5 or under 3.6 last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know. Think about organization Don Mattingly here too. He doesn't necessarily have to have the best reliever close. Yeah. See also Brandon Kinsler last year and how much of a profit he generated.
You can get 9 saves out of him in 7-8 weeks, and then kind of maybe it doesn't work out. You go somewhere else, and I'd jump on that right now.
Yeah. You just don't want a guy that gets 1 save, you start chasing it, and then he gets blown up in his next 2 outings. That never happens. Like the every Giants pitcher.
I was gonna say, do you jump in on Jake McGee at all late?
He was in my queue when he got snagged in TGFBI. He was probably my pick at the end of the 22nd, I think maybe. I wanted him and didn't get him. It was either 22nd or 24th. I forget, but I think he's my favorite to begin the year as the closer. I think Reyes Maranta is interesting as well, and I think Matt Whistler is also a tiny bit interesting.
I just think Maranta walks too many guys.
That's possible. And I also think
13 and 14% walk rate the last 2 years. I don't know. I can't do it. I don't think.
I just think I want to be Never Kapler also.
I think that's a fair way to put it. And what I gather from talking about all these guys is the back half of teams, maybe the last 15 teams, there's going to be a ton of committees and upheaval and job changes. And, they're going to have 6 guys get saves. It's not going to be the Rays for all these teams, but there's going to be a lot of movement. There's a lot of teams that have like 2 guys, and they'll probably settle on 1. The Cardinals will probably end up with 1. The Red Sox might end up with 1. There's a lot of these teams but they're so close, and there's not like an obvious, like you look at Ottavino and Barnes, you're like, I don't really want either, but if one gets the job, they're certainly rosterable. So I think you're going to have to be really vigilant on closers all year. I think that I want to get I'm probably going to cap it off as one of my top 10 guys in my rankings. I'm going to want to get one of those. And then I'm maybe willing to jump down to a Richard Rodriguez or Archie Bradley, someone there. My goal in main events is probably not going to get 2 studs, but to get one I feel pretty good about, and then one that is lower down that I can kind of squint a little bit and see them working out.
Yeah, I mean, the TGFBI is useful for you, like seeing how that plays out when you got 2 in the top 10. It sounds like you're not happy with the build. You felt like you're chasing?
I didn't like it, and then I got enough starters late that kind of lasted to me that I ended up liking it. I thought I was going to be light on starting pitching, but it ended up I got a lot of the guys I like. That's not going to happen in the main event. There's a lot. I took Josh Lindrum and Ryan Yarbrough probably later than they'll go in late March. So you can't count on that kind of, and it's just, different the way people draft differently. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's just a lot of those guys that I like pitcher wise later targets are going to get pushed up, and I'm not going to be able to get them where I want to. There's a lot of good players in the 10th round, like you said, when I took Yates, and I'd probably, where closers went, I'd probably wait and probably get Rodriguez or Bradley or someone like that. Maybe take a third guy, take a Bass or someone down there. Maybe take a shot on Jonathan Hernandez or Chris Martin. Maybe someone down there. Maybe try and luck into a third rather than getting 2. But I will tell you that not having to think about closer after round 10 was kind of fun.
Yeah, I can see it.
I didn't even think about it for like 12 rounds until I got some speculative guys late. But it didn't even cross my mind, which is kind of a good feeling.
Yeah, I bet. I liked the 12. 12's way different than the 15, but I liked going with Hendricks, and then I didn't take another closer until all these spec. I got my guy. I got Chris Martin. I got Fairbanks. I got Sims. And you know what? If they don't work, well, I can easily swap those guys out. Yeah. It's not like I've invested a whole lot of draft capital in chasing this down.
In the 12er, you're going to get some chances in Fab too. And the 15-teamer, right. That's what is that? Another 90 guys that are owned. A lot of those are closers and waiting. It's just a lot hard. You got 3 more teams to bid against. I find myself being a little more in a 12, getting aggressive when getting one of the studs, than being fine, kind of having to find my way through the second and third as the season goes along. I'm usually almost can always find someone that I want to take late. I want to get later in Fab or pick someone up later. People drop guys in those leagues. Like, you can usually find someone in July if you need a closer. It's just a different setup.
Yeah, 2019, the main event champ messed up the closers big time and waited. And then
I remember that. Yep.
And he fabbed his way to being acceptable there. And that I've seen other like what the main event example I was talking about with Diaz and how that didn't really translate into being top 20 teams. So, it never knows. It just seems to me.
I've also seen a lot of teams die because they didn't have a second closer, and
I've had a lot of teams die. Yes.
Competed overall and didn't because of that reason. So it goes both ways. But
for sure,
if you're great everywhere else, you can certainly make it work. But it's nice not to sweat the position. But it's funny you talked about kind of building a team in TGFBI. I realize that stolen bases, I'm gonna have to figure out a strategy because stolen bases are really hard.
Yeah.
I think we'll talk about that next week a little bit, kind of looking for mid to late round stolen base targets, because I found myself, if you don't get those guys early, and I didn't. I got some power guys I really like, but it's hard to find guys, and you find there's 4 or 5 teams that need steals, and everybody's aggressive for those dudes.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. Anybody else closer wise you want to talk about? I think we hit almost every team except for Baltimore, and I'm probably not going there either.
Detroit, but
I
think remember, new
Soto?
manager there. So we'll see what they want. Hinch likes to kind of name a guy, but I don't know if he's there yet. Soto reported late, for instance, is one of the things. So I think that'll take some time. But once he finds it, I think he'll stick with him. But he hasn't found it yet.
Yeah, I guess it's Gregory Soto or Brian Garcia, maybe the top front runner guys at the moment.
Cisneros, or it could be your boy Joe Jimenez after what a beautiful year he had last year. But
Brian Garcia had 2 more strikeouts than walks last year.
Yeah, that's not great, Bob. Not great.
I don't think I'm specking there is my answer there. But thanks, everybody, for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We do truly appreciate it. If you want to follow Jeff on Twitter, he's at Jeff_Erickson. I am at Scott Jenstad. We'll be back at you actually next Monday. We're going to do a Monday morning. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to be in beautiful, scenic Wichita, Kansas next week and help my parents move. So we'll be doing morning session Sunday night.
Yes, we will have a podcast, but it'll just be a few hours later than normal, so hang with us there. But it'll be up pretty soon on Monday morning. Other than that, however, everybody has a fantastic week. Take care. We'll be back at you next week.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.